Everyone, welcome to 2023. If you are new here, my name is Carol. I want to use this opportunity to thank everyone who subscribed to my channel last year, who liked, who watched my video. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it a lot. Despite I did not do much last year, but yet you guys were there for me. So this year I will try and do better than last year. At least I will post once a week, I promise. The tutorial I'm going to be having for you today is an overbust corset. I'm going to make it as basic as it can be, okay? So without wasting much of your time, let's get started. So guys, I already marked my perpendicular lines. That means 2 inches from the top edge of my paper, 1 inch from the side of my paper. Then I've marked the length. The length I used is 21 inches, which is great for a corset length. Can be altered either a little bit longer or a little bit shorter. Then the next thing I did was to divide my bust. The bust I used is 36, which was divided into 2, which is 18 inches. So that's what I have here, 18 inches. So I'm going to divide 18 inches into 2, which is which is 9 inches. So the 9 inches, I'm going to borrow 1/4 of an inch from the back for the front. So the back will be 8 3/4. So I've connected the line. So this is for the back, which is center back, CB. Then this is CF, center front. Okay, so the next thing we need to mark now is what we call nap to waist measurements. Nap to waist measurement. Now this is what we call the nap to waist measurement, from the tip of the back of the neck to the natural waistline. That is nap to waist measurement. Now as you are taking all these measurements, you also take the back length, which I always call the push line. Try and take the back lengths together. Now some designers only use this for drafting, or they use this for drafting, and some of us use the two for drafting. So it depends on choice. Okay, so I'm going to mark my nap to waist measurement, which is 15 3/4. So I'll mark that here. Okay, so the next thing to mark now is what we call the armhole depth. Now for the armhole depth, you can use the formula bust divided by 6 plus 1.5, or you use your nap to waist divided by 2, or the armhole circumference, you can divide that by 2. The armhole depth depends on what you normally use. Okay, so but I love using my nap to waist as my armhole depth, so I'm going to divide that by 2, which is 15 3/4 divided by 2, that is 7.78, which is 7 3/4 plus 0.1. So that's what I will mark here. So the next thing I'm going to do now is what we call the push line, which is the back length. Like I said, measure from the tip of the neck here to the waistline. The standard is between 3/4 and 1 inch, but if you measure it, it gives you the actual length. So mine, I'm going to use 1 inch. So I'm going to raise this line by 1 inch from the nap to waist. I'm going to raise it by 1 inch. So I'm going to connect. Okay, so I'll just mark the line out faintly. So the next thing I'm going to mark now is the shoulder, and the shoulder I'm using is 15 inches. So divided into 2 is 7.5 inches. Okay, so I'm going to mark that from the back, which is 7.5, on the shoulder line. Okay, so I'm going to transfer that to this armhole depth, 7.5 inches. Okay, so I'll connect. Okay, now I'm going to be working in between the two at the same time. So for the shoulder line for the front, I'm going to reduce 1/4 of an inch from the shoulder that I divided for the back, which is going to be 7/4. The reason is that the back is wider at the shoulder line than the front, so I will just reduce 1/4 of an inch from it. So 7/4 I'll connect. Okay, so the next thing to mark now is what we call the shoulder to neck point. Shoulder to neck point, which is this shoulder to neck point. Okay, so mine is 4 3/4. So I'm going to mark the shoulder slope first. So I'll mark the shoulder slope for the back from the nape to waist line that I marked from the shoulder line. I'm going to mark 3/4 of an inch. Now this depends. I'm going to mark 3/4 of an inch from there. Then for the front, I'm going to use 1.5 inches. Now also this depends. Standard for medium size, I use 1.5 for medium size. I use 1/4 for smaller size, and I use 1/3 for big plus size. Okay, so 1.5 for medium size, which I have marked, then 3/4 at this end. So that's what I use. Then from this point, I'm now going to mark what we call the shoulder to neck point that I showed you guys. Okay, so and what I have there is 4 3/4. So I'm going to position my tape, as you are seeing, to mark my 4 3/4 on the back length that we mark, which is the push line. So where it touches it is where I'm going to mark that 4 3/4. Okay, okay, so this is the point where it touches it. Okay, so for the front, I'm going to do the same thing, 4 3/4. Okay, so at this junction now, whatever is left between this and this is your neck width. Okay, so I'm going to connect it with my ruler now. So I'm going to connect the neck for the back now. For the front, I'm going to use whatever is left here. This is 2 3/4, so I'm going to use the same 2 3/4. But if it's not up to 2.5, should be the moderate. If it is 2.5, you can add maybe 1/4 of an inch to it, depending. But 2 3/4 will work for this measurement. Okay, so I'm going to connect with my French core. Now we are good at this point. So the next thing we are going to mark is what we call the across front and across back. Okay, so I'm going to divide this by 2 to get my across back line. Then divide it again into 2. Okay, to enable me curve when I want to curve. Okay, so I'll mark the same thing at the center back here. Then I'll connect. Okay, then for the front, I will do the same thing. Divide this by 3, not by 2. I'll divide it by 3. Okay, to be able to draw my armhole circumference across back is 14.5. Divide into 2. I'm going to mark 7/4. 7/4. Now when I say across back, this is across the back, from this point to this point. Across back from this point to this point. Then the across front from this point to this point. The next thing now to do is to connect my armhole circumference. Okay, now for the front, what I'm going to do from this point, I'm going to move in by 3/4 of an inch. Okay, then I'll connect. Now from this point, I'll come out by 1 inch or 3/4 of an inch. So I'll connect from the across front to the chest line, then following the angle, 45-degree angle that I marked. So okay. So we've gotten our armhole circumference. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to mark now going down is the bust depth, which is 10 inches. Then the under bust depth is 13 inches. I'm going to mark them simultaneously. I'm going to mark what we call the full front length, which we can convert into our bust depth. So I'm just going to mark it faintly. I'm not going to mark it with a dark pencil. Okay, just going to mark it light. So this is our full front length. This is not to waist. Okay, this is our chest line. This is our across front line. The neck depth. Okay, this is the neck width. I'll just label it. And for the back, the same thing, we label it. This is the chest line, this is the across back, this is the neckline. Okay, so I'll connect all this, the bust, I'll connect the bust depth and the under bust. So now we're going to mark our panel lines, distribute our panel lines, which there are some things that are going to guide us to mark our panel lines. So the first panel line we're going to use is the bust span divided into 2, which the bust span is 7 3/4 divided into 2 is what we're going to mark on the bust line. 7 3/4 divided into 2. So I'm going to mark that here. Okay, so with this now, it depends on how I want my panel line. Do I want it slanted? Do I want it straight? That depends on me. But in this one that we're drafting, I want it slanted. So I'm going to use this as a guide, the bust span that I've used. So I'm going to subtract 1 3/4 from the bust span that I divided. So I'm going to mark 2 inches just to reduce, to slant the line. Okay, so that is the first line that I'm marking. So I'll connect it. Okay, so the second line I want to mark, what is going to determine that for me now is I'm going to move in from the bust line by 1 5/8 inches. That's what I use. Is that I use my bust span, or I just move in from the side with 1 5/8 inch, or 1.5. I'm moving by 1.5, guys. So this is going to guide me for the next one. Then for the downside, use 2 inches here, so I'm going to use 3 inches here. So I'm going to mark 3 inches, 3 inches here. So I just subtracted 3/4 of an inch from it. So I subtracted 3/4 of an inch from the next one. So like I said, it depends on you. You can make them straight. So I'm going to connect these lines now from this point to this point. Okay, so we have gotten 2 lines here. Now this panel lines that I'm marking, it depends on how you want to divide it. It can be more than this, or it can just be 2. So for the back, I'm just going to use 2. You can still divide it by 3. Well, I'm going to use the total of this and divide it by 2. Okay, so the next thing now to do is to do our dart reductions. How do I achieve my? The first thing I will do is to divide my shoulder into 2. Before I start my reduction. Okay, so I've gotten all my panel lines already. So the next thing, how do I achieve it? How do I go about it? There's a formula. The formula that I'm going to use is not going to be hard, like I said at the beginning, basic, but we are going to achieve the professional way. So now remember that the bust line that we use 36. Your bust that we divided into two. That is number one, which is 18 inches. Okay. Now the how we're going to do is I'm going to subtract 18. Now my under bust is 29 inches, which is on the screen. 29 divided into 2 is, I've already done the arithmetic here. 29 divided into 2 is 14 and half. So we'll say 18 minus 14 and half is going to give us 3 and half. So the total reduction we need on the under bust line to be able to give us that perfect fitting, we have to remove a total of 3.5 inches on this line, which is going to be on the panel lines. Now imagine, where do we have more gape in our body? The most gaping is on the under the bust for the princess line, which is the nipple line. That's where we have more gaping. So we have to concentrate on that one first. So the standard that is being used is 1.5 for everybody. Standard is 1.5. You can now use maybe 2 inches or more if you want, depending on what you are designing or what you want to achieve. But the standard that is being used in the corset is 1.5 for everyone. So the 1.5 is what I'm going to use here. But I'm going to, for this side, I'm going to put more on this and divide that into 2 if you want. But I'm going to just use 1 for this side to be more. From this point now, I'm going to take it down. So I'm going to mark the same thing that I marked here. I'm going to mark it on my hip line. So I'm going to mark 1/2 inch here. Then mark the same 1 inch here. So I'm going to connect it together. So we have connected that. So from the 3.5 that we have here, we have already subtracted 1.5. Okay. There are some designers that use 1/2 inch here, but I don't use 1/2 inch. The standard is 3/8 of an inch, 3/8 of an inch. But I don't concentrate on this one first. I will go to my waistline before I will connect it before I will know what I have removed there before concluding on this back panel line. Okay, so let's go to the waistline. So how do I calculate the waistline? Now remember that the waistline is where we want to snatch, where we want to cinch, where we are doing the waist reduction. That is where we want the hourglass shape. Okay, now how do I get my waist to be cinched? How do I cinch my own waist? Now the standard is between 2 and 4 inches for a fashion corset, but for a training corset, that is another thing on its own. But for a fashion corset, it's between 2 inches to 4 inches. And I'm going to use the way I go about it is that I use 4 inches for anybody that their waist is more than their under bust. If your under bust is more than your waist, you already have an hourglass shape. Okay, but if your waist is more than your under bust, I use 4 inches waist reduction. Now for this particular one that we are doing, the waist is 30 while the under bust is 29. So that means the waist is more than the under bust. So what I'm going to use now is 4 inches. So the 4 inches, I'm going to divide it into 2, just as the way we divided our bust and other measurements into 2. 18 minus, now waist divided into 2 is 15. So 15 minus 2 first, because we are reducing it from there. Remember, I said 4 inches, so divide into 2, you are going to have 2 inches. The 15 minus 2, which is going to give us 13 inches. So it's going to be 18 minus 13. I'm going to have 5 inches. So 5 inches is the dart opening that I'm removing from the waist. Okay, now if we want to subtract it, I've already subtracted 1.5 inches from this point. So another point I will need to concentrate now is the waistline, which is the side line here. Okay, now the standard is 3/4 of an inch for both sides if you want to remove, but I'm going to remove 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch from this front and 1 inch from the back. Okay, so we now connect to our bust line. So I'm going to use my French curve to curve that line first to give me that curvy shape. Okay, okay, so I'm going to mark half inch, half up, half down. Okay, so from this point now I'll connect using my French curve. You can use your straight ruler if you want, but I'll use my French curve. So I've connected it. So at this junction now, what I will have is about 3/4 of an inch, as you can see. So about 3/4 of an inch. So now we have already removed I'm back to the underbust. We've already removed the 1.5 here. We removed 3/4 from the 3.5. So whatever is left is what I'm going to distribute here. So let's use our calculator to calculate that. So that is 3.5 minus 1.5 minus 0.75. So I have 1.25 that is left. So this 1.25 is what I'm going to now distribute between this line, this panel line, and this panel line. Okay, I'm going to use 1/4 of an inch, quarter here, quarter here. So I've removed half an inch from here. So what is left now is 3/4 of an inch, which is 3/8 of an inch, 3/8 of an inch. So that's what I'm going to distribute at this point. 1 2 3, 1 2 3. Okay, so we are done with the front and the back for the under bust line. So I'm going to connect them to the bust line. Okay, so the whole 3.5 we have removed it from the front and from the back. So we go back to the waistline. Remember, we have already removed 1.5 from the waistline. We have removed 2 inches and we are having 5 inches. So that will be 5 minus 2 minus 1.5. Okay, so we have 1.5 left. So the 1.5 now I'm going to divide it into 4. So 3/8 inches, that will be 3/4. If we divide it into 2 between this line, which is going to be divided into 4, we have 3/8 of an inch here, 3/8 of an inch here, 3/8 of an inch here, 3/8 of an inch here. That will make 1.5. Okay, so that's what I'm going to mark here now. So I'll connect to the underbust line. So now remember, I marked the full front length here. Now the full front length, I convert it to a bust dart, but I am not particular about that. I just need it straight, which we're still going to achieve what we're going to achieve. So the next thing is to concentrate on the hip line, which is the length line now, which is the number 4 calculation. Now we remember that we are subtracting the bust from all the underbust, the waistline, and the hip line. So it's going to be 18 inches now minus. Remember that this is going to affect the hip line, so we're going to add this O. If not, it's supposed to be angled. So we're going to now add it to the hip line. Now my hip measurement is 39.5. The 39.5 divide into 2, that will give us 19.75 inches plus this 1.5. Okay, that will give us 18 minus 21.25. I hope you guys are following. I will write them on the screen. So that will give us 21.20 21 and quarter inches.
So that will, if we should subtract it, will give us a negative 3.25 to give us negative as an answer. So, and when you have a negative, is going to intertwine, it's going to give you that curvy shape, intertwine to give you a good curvy shape. So that's what we're going to do here now. But how do you distribute it? You can't use the old 3.25 for the side alone. You have to distribute it for the side and the back. But how do we do it? The side has to take more than the back. So the front, the side now is going to take 2/3 of this measurement. So we are going to divide it into 3. The 3.25 divided into 3. 3.25 divided into 3. So you are having 1.1. So 1.1 is going to come to this side, 1.1 is going to come to this side. So the remaining 1 inches is going to come, we are going to distribute that in between this area. So I'm going to mark 1.1 here, 1.1 here, and 1.1 here. Okay, so the remaining 1 inch, I'm going to now share it between this line. Okay, so we're going to connect our waist to our hip, starting from this 1/2 inch. Okay, so I will use my hip curve. Okay, so are we seeing it? Then this one, we're going to connect it as a diamond angle, connect it straight to that point this way. The next thing is to create my princess cut and do my that opening on the chest line, because the chest line cannot be like this. So how do we achieve that? We're going to subtract this half that we have here, which is already 9/4. Remember when we divided into 2, we had 9/4 for the front. So the 9/4 minus our bust span is going to give us the space that is left to be removed from the chest line. It is 9/4 minus 7.75. So we have 1.5 inches to remove. Okay, now the thing that can always guide you first in removing your bust dart and creating whatever you want to create here for a cup is, you just have to, it's not necessary if you don't want to, but you can create your bust radius to guide you. Now, how do you get your bust radius? If you're somebody who take your measurements correctly, your bust to your under bust will give you your bust radius, but it's between 7 cm to about 10 cm depending on who you are working for. So in this one that we are working is 3 inches. So I'm going to just create it faintly. I'm not going to mark it to show more, so that we don't create more lines. Now, what is the purpose of this bust radius? This bust radius shows you the point where your bust actually is sitting. That means your breast is sitting on. Okay, that means when you are designing, you are not supposed to go beyond these limits. But though designers go beyond the limits, that means for the, you're supposed to stop at this line, you're supposed to stop at this line, you're not supposed to get to this line, you are not supposed to get to this line. So you are supposed to move out a little bit out of this frame. Okay, that is the purpose. So we have our bust radius at this point. So we're going to mark the that opening we have for the chest area, so which is 1.5 inches. So I'm going to mark 1.5 inches at this point. So we have marked. We're going to connect it to the bust point. Okay, so now we're going to connect from the bust point line to the under bust. I'm going to move away by 3/4 inch and connect to the under bust. Okay, so I'll connect them this way Okay, so the next thing, I'll connect this. Now this 1.5 that I marked here, I distributed everything to the side. If you want, it depends on design that you are creating. If you want, you can divide them into two and share it in between, but depend on design that you are making. If you want the angle to come from the side this way, you let everything be this way. But if you want it in the middle, or it depends on what you want, this can always be altered and manipulated. Okay, so I've done that. I'll connect this now to this point. The next thing we need to do is what we call the side length. The side length. Now this is the side length. It starts from the waistline towards the armhole. You can always mark, you can always measure it. All you need is to tie a tape at the chest line of your client and at the waistline. Then you take the side length. You get your accurate side length. But for this side length, what we have is 7/3. The 7/3, you have to mark it from the full front length line, and most time is about 3/4 inch away from your bust line, as you can see. 3/4 inch away from your bust line. But if you don't want, you just take it to the armhole line. Okay, so but I'm going to use this. So I'm going to connect this to this now. Okay, then I will join this remaining line with this. So I'll connect this to this, as you can see. So we are done with the front. So the next thing is I'm going to connect this to the either I connect it here or I bring it a little bit down, depending on what I want. Using my curve, I'll erase this for now so that you guys can see it very well. What we need to do now is to finish up with this center front, this one. So what do we do? The next thing is to mark from the same bust line. You mark 3 inches. Remember the 3 inches as our, so I'll connect it to this point. Okay, then to be able to create the shape for the center front, if you want it straight, you can still be left straight, but if you want it down, you can bring it down to the chest. Like this one now, I will just bring it to the chest line using my French curve. But the standard is about 3/8 of an inch. If you don't want to show too much, 3/8 of an inch is the standard. Okay, so now we have created our panel 1, panel 2, panel 3, panel 4, panel 5. With this one now, you can use it for a zip. So this upper side now can be your net or whatever you want to use, on lace, this side. But this can be a corset on its own with a zip, but you will just put a belt at the waistline so that it will snatch the waistline first before you zip up. Okay, so we have done that justice now. So now if this one now, if you want a lacing at the back, what you need to do, it depends on the gap you want at the back. Do you want it so close that when you tighten it, you just be seeing like half an inch or 1 inch at the back? So you mark half an inch. We'll mark half an inch away, connect it straight. So this is what we are going to be cutting out if we are making it with a lacing at the back. Then 1 inch for our highlight area, which is also called the grommet, depending on what you call it, but highlights, where you place your highlights. Okay, so this point now will be our highlight point. This is if you want the back to be very close. Now With this, after you have done this, if you want the back, remember that this corset that I'm teaching you now is, you can use it for any of the styles you see online. You can use it for zip, you can use it for little gap, then you can use it if it's the V shape you want, the one that the back will be very open. You mark three inches this way, then you mark half an inch this way, then you connect it this way. Are you seeing it? So the opening, you determine your opening. This junction now, do you want it long? But at this, with this length, you are good to go. But if you want to change the shape, let me erase this. I hope it will erase. So if you want to change the shape, you can just, if you want it angled, just like some styles we used to see, you measure 1 inch down. Can be 1 inch, it can be more than 1 inch. But like I always say, it should not be more than 7 inches down from the center front. Okay, then the side can be 4 inches. The side can be 4 inches. Okay, so we're going to connect it from here now to this point and connect this way. So I'll connect from this point to the second panel. Then I'll turn my ruler this way. Remember that this is serving for the front. This is serving for the front, so you are going to connect up to that point. By the time you want to cut them, you make sure that you close them together before you cut. Now for the back it can come straight, or better still, you can measure 1 inch down at this point too and connect this way. But please, it should not be more than, for the back is not even more than 6 inches or 5 inches thereabout, depending on the waistline of your client, from your waist to the hip, depending. Some people have their torso longer from their waist to their hip, so it depends. If there's somebody who is short, you can't do that. So guys, you can have this or you have it straight. I hope I'm not making too many marking, but I can make it straight. Okay, so now we have our overbust. This is what we call the overbust corsets. So it's either you use it for a zip, or you use it with a small opening, or you use it with a V opening, or you even make the opening very wide, depend on you. On this same pattern, create your underbust corset, create your 3-piece cup, but I will just stop at the underbust corset. Okay, so now what you need to do, it depends on how you want to shape it, but I'll just mark let's say 3/4 of an inch up here. You can make it 1/4, it depends. It's the center of your front, depending on what you want, but let's mark 3/4 of an inch. So from the underbust, I'll mark half an inch down. From the side, I'll mark 3/4 inch up. Then from this side, I can make it 1.5 or 1/4, depending on what you wish to do for the back. But there are some people, they just stop at the 3/4, they stop straight, or they stop a little bit above it, depending on your design. Or you can just come the same way. But let's give our front a curve. I'll move in a little bit, like half an inch, then I will curve from there, create it this way. Okay, and I take it from this point. Okay, then from here, it depends what you want. Do you want it this way, or do you want, you can make it the same straight, but the 3/4 of an inch, like I said. So let me just mark it here. With this, you have created your underbust corset. There is too many lines now, but I will use the colored pencil to show off the underbust corset that we mark. So this is it here. So guys, I had to shade the panel off camera, as you can see. So this down one are the underbust corsets. So this is the overbust corset. From the green side entering into the red is the overbust corset. So from here now, I'm sure you understand the basis of corsets. I wanted to do the cupped corset, the three-piece cup corset, but I think I will be congesting. I'll be doing a lot on one pattern, so I had to stop there. Basically, this is all for now. I don't want to congest so many tutorials on this one, but basically what I do is I put everything in one pattern and I trace with my paper gum. Okay, so we'll stop here for now. I think I will see you guys next week with another tutorial. I hope you will join me. Thank you for watching. If you have watched to the end, please like, subscribe if you are new, and press that notification bell. Thank you so much, guys. I love you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.